Hi, it's Dr. Shelley Meyer, and I'm back to talk more about perimenopause. And today we're talking about the stages of perimenopause. Hey, it's Dr. Meyer. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you're joining me again. Thanks so much for being here. I talk about gut health, hormone health, and metabolic health. So today we are focusing on hormone health, and that would be the topic of today's focus would be stages of perimenopause. If you missed last week's video all about perimenopause symptoms, like the 34 symptoms of perimenopause, please check it out. I also have another playlist on other playlists on hormone health and estrogen dominance, menopause, perimenopause, all of that, plus all my gut health information. I'm a functional medicine doctor, family doctor, and registered dietitian, and I post on this channel, like I said, with all those topics. So please like the channel, subscribe, and share this content if you feel like it would be relevant or helpful to anyone in your life. And that really helps the channel grow, so I appreciate your support. So today we are talking about the stages of perimenopause. Now, perimenopause it's not the same as menopause. It is the years leading up to menopause. I talked about this in my last video. So menopause is the day you go 12 months without a period. Perimenopause are the years leading up. Now, perimenopause can start as up to 8 years before actual menopause happens. So it's a long road, ladies. Let's just make sure we educate ourselves, because your doctor's usually not going to talk to you about perimenopause. Now, there's plenty of us that are doctors out there, but there's plenty of us that don't. So I hear from a lot of women that they didn't know anything about it. And I talk about it every day with women, because it is something that, if you watch last week's video, there's a lot of symptoms that can be mysterious, curious, and really get in the way of your life if you're having them. So it's good to be educated. So first stage would be, the estrogen dominant stage. Now, during this stage, your body is probably going to start going through irregular periods, at least every once in a while. You will have usually a drop in progesterone, and that can happen after you have the surges of estrogen. The body's basically trying to catch up. It's thinking, okay, we are not making enough progesterone, so we'll try to make more, but that still does steadily drop throughout the years. Or it'll think, okay, we're not steadily making enough estrogen, or our ovaries aren't responding to us, so we're going to, stimulate that FSH and make more estrogen. And then at times that can make you estrogen dominant, meaning there's a big gap between your estrogen and progesterone. So that can cause a lot of those symptoms I talked about last week, of the mood irregularity, the irritability, the problem sleeping. That can be either from high estrogen, or when it drops too low, when it's not in a perfect balance, is when you're going to a lot of times see that waking up between 3 and 4 a.m. and not being able to go back to sleep. You can have those palpitations I talked about. You could have the hair loss. It's not fun, but that's why we want to learn about it and learn what we can do about it. So that's generally in the first stage. So you're going to have those irregular periods. You may have the estrogen go way, way up and then drop and then come back up. So you can have, maybe when it drops, some of those hot flashes. When the progesterone drops steadily throughout this first stage, then you're going to have potentially night sweats or even problems falling asleep. Then you could have that perimenopause, that transition period where, so the progesterone is staying low now, and then the estrogen is going up and down even more than it did before. Periods are getting more irregular, so it may be 60 days or more without a period. That's happening in that kind of middle stage. Sometimes those periods could be super heavy, and then sometimes very light. And then towards the end of that middle stage, you probably are going to have very scanty, light, kind of spotting type periods. And then in the late stages, that's like the final 12 months from your last period. So it's where you're kind of waiting for that actual day of menopause. Typically what you're going to see with your hormones then is that progesterone staying low, and then that estrogen just gradually taking a nosedive, having more of those hot flashes, having more of the night sweats, hot flashes from the low progesterone, night sweats from either the low progesterone hot flashes from the low estrogen, night sweats from either the low progesterone or the low estrogen. You may have even more of the mood swings in a different way, or have more fatigue, and more hair loss and more mood kind of shifts, feeling a lot more low potentially than you did before. There's a lot of symptoms, so please check out that last video on that. So I know this sounds very depressing, but it doesn't have to be. There are ways, I have a free PDF, and there's ways to look at this with your provider, looking at your hormone balance. Also, ways to adjust this through working on your diet. Basically, you're definitely going to want to stay away from sugar to the best of your ability. I know that's not good news either, but it will help, and it will help the weight gain that happens from perimenopause that I talked about last week. So if you reduce that added sugar and make your carbs more of the actual real carbs, real food that I've talked about, and I will link some videos about what that kind of diet looks like, and avoid those that would trigger kind of estrogen surges or hormone surges, and eat real food, real whole foods, lower processed carbs, keeping those white flour based processed, pastas and crackers and cookies and sugar, like the cakes, the things you may crave, keeping those out. Instead, if you do want something sweet, maybe a dark chocolate, like 85%, 88% or higher. Now, there's been, science articles about, not really science articles, but information about dark chocolate being higher in heavy metals, which it can be. So I do recommend looking into that. Go to Consumer Reports and find the ones that are lower. But that is a good way to get some of your sweet tooth out of there. There's some herbal teas that I'll put in a list in the description that can help you kind of with those cravings as well. And there's some other things I use with my patients that I'll put in the description for sugar cravings. So having a cleaner, more whole food based diet, less caffeine. Alcohol is a big thing that can factor into making these stages worse. So definitely lowering your alcohol intake. I find this is a time period where a lot of my patients that are women will increase their alcohol intake, and that's not doing any favors. I made that mistake when I was going through perimenopause, leaned on it a little bit too much, not problem drinking area, but it didn't help, and it made the hormone imbalance, it made the sleep, it made the mood a lot worse. So definitely looking at that and trying to keep your alcohol to a minimum, maybe none, or maybe just 1 or 2 drinks a week at most, just when you go out to dinner or something like that. Trying not to drink alone at home. That can be a big stress reliever for a lot of women, but it can definitely trigger more exaggeration of these stages of perimenopause. Working on your stress is another key thing to making the stages of perimenopause better. And then I also like some herbs. Vitex is a great herb to help with the low progesterone. Ashwagandha can be very good for a lot of women. Always check these herbs with your healthcare provider. If you have a naturopath, that's great. If you have a functional medicine provider, great. If you have anybody that is a provider, a healthcare provider that's part of your team that is an integrative medicine doctor, great. So, or a provider. But definitely check this out. Make sure that these are safe and good for you. I have found black cohosh to be helpful towards the end, but it's not always the best at all. Like, it depends on what stage you're in. So on its own, it might not be the best, but there's a blend called Fem Guard Balance from Designs for Health that I use quite often. I'll put a link to that in the description as well. And I'm going to include a couple other herbs that I like to use, but definitely something we're going to dive deeper into in this series. I thank you so much for watching. If you want to support the channel, please like, subscribe, and share. And please look at my doctor approved supplement links that I put there. That helps the channel. And then subscribing to the newsletter and getting the PDF, that free PDF helps the channel grow. And then just keep coming back for more if you're interested. I thank you so much. Put any questions you have in the comments, and I'll see you next week.